What are the stages you go through as a sales rep on your path to the destination where you want to go, wherever that is for you? Today, we got Ron Massey back on the show. He was on, I think, about a year ago. I've known Ron now for a couple of years. He was one of the first students in Start the Conversation, Get the Meeting when it was launched, and he embraced it. And I think what you're going to learn today is one of the key distinctions between people who become good at sales and people who become great at sales is their openness, their willingness, their desire to scoop up new, better ways of doing it, to be able to take feedback, to look at what they're doing, see how other people are doing it, and how they can become better at sales. And this comes throughout this interview, and it's something that I really enjoyed working with Ron on, because he was kind of the guy who was always asking questions, always sharing experiences, would show his work. A lot of people don't want to show their work, and it's hard to help if I'm not seeing what you're doing. People say, "Oh, I did exactly what you told me." Okay, let me see it, because exactly and almost exactly are very different. So many things in sales are just slight little nuances. When you do it, how you do it, how many words are you using? These little things can compound into something that's in the way. The typical progression I see with salespeople is that they start off, very money motivated, success motivated. They get a little bit of success. They attribute it mostly to themselves, and they work really hard, and they grind it out, and they push through the resistance, and they have a good experience. They might even be in the top 5 or 10%. The challenge becomes when either they get burnt out with the grind or they get into a more complex sale where maybe it isn't as much inbound or existing accounts. It's greenfield where you have to really build up stuff. And this is really kind of where Ron was when I met him. He was at a pretty successful company. They were actually a customer of mine back a while ago, so I knew the company pretty well in the market. He had some great accounts, but they were kind of legacy, and he wanted to expand it, and he wanted to talk with higher level people. He was pigeonholed with operations and users, and we had some great success. We had a lot of fun because when somebody embraces your approach and kind of understands where you're going with it and then applies it versus kind of analyzes it and says, that doesn't work in my world. Well, did you try? Ron embraced it. Ron really applied it, had the success with, the record time. It's when people do it and I hear right back from them within an hour, look at the reply I got. And all of a sudden a conversation is started with a C-level person. And what's really fun about this interview, and I wish I turned the recorder on sooner, I won't mention the name of the company, but he had used the approach with a Fortune 100 CEO and got a reply back within a half an hour. When we learn how to engage with other people in the steps that they want to, and we get out of being a rep, so many sales models and approaches has us versus them approach instead of working together with people, how to build rapport, how to connect with the other person, how to talk about what they care about, and get away from the who you are, what you do, how does it work, how does it compare to what I'm doing now, and what's it cost. If we stay at the vendor level, we are just a brochure, we are just a web page. Ron now is in the super big enterprise, new market space. He's got a great job with a great company. I'm really happy for him, and we continue to work together. But what you'll hear in this interview is what a great rep sounds like. Somebody who just embraces change, embraces becoming better at the performance of sales. Let's get into the interview. I'll sum it up at the end. And also want to make sure you're checking out our partners over at Co-Video. They're putting out a lot of videos on LinkedIn. The product itself is a video email system, a way of connecting with other people. And you're seeing it all over the place. They're the Zoom of email. So you got to embrace this. It's the way to stand out, connect with other people, and really expand your relationship with your market. This is not, you're not a vendor. If you act like a vendor in this world today, it's over. No one wants a vendor. People want a partner, somebody to talk with, a human being, somebody who's going to help them through a decision-making process, a transformation process. And video is the mode today. It just happened. And if you don't embrace it and you stick in the text world, you're going to miss a big part of what's going on. So go to covideo.com, check it out, give it a trial, tell me you heard about it on the podcast. Here we go with the interview. Hey, Ron, welcome back to the show. Give us a little update on yourself.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me. My name's Ron Massey. I think I was on the show, maybe it was like 2 years ago now, if I'm remembering right.
It's
Feels
been a
like
while.
yesterday. Yeah, it's been a little while, but yeah, a lot has gone on. So when we last talked, I was just starting to get up and running really with some of the stuff that you're teaching in terms of the courses. I might have been one of the first beta
I think
customers, whatever you want to call us, in 2017 for Get the Meeting. Really, grasped onto that whole methodology, if you want to call it that, and how to think different, because it really was a mind shift for me. And I remember struggling through it on a lot of one-on-ones with you, trying to shift my mind from the traditional way that we've been taught.
Yeah.
Pitch, it's about us, our product, our features, our functions, and then move myself over to thinking more about them and what are they going through. And a big piece of that for me has been to really start to understand the personal wins that people have, not a persona, but the personal wins. But that was a huge mind shift that I had to go through, and just being able to work through that. So I was at a SaaS-based company here in San Diego that was selling enterprise analytics and consulting services. And about a month ago, I just shifted over to a new company here, headquartered out of San Diego. I needed a new challenge. I needed something refreshing. And it excited me about what they were doing. So it became less about where I was coming from and more about the opportunity that I saw ahead.
Yeah.
And where the space was going.
And what motivated you? You just needed, a new opportunity, a little bit more upside, or?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A lot of things were motivating me. I started feeling like my vision for where I wanted to go was starting to not really align the way that I felt that it should and where I was. And I'd been there for 5 years. And it was a great run, and I loved it. And I'll forever be grateful for them. They gave me my opportunity in SaaS, coming from commercial printing before that into this technology SaaS world. This is where I really wanted to be. But I wanted to be somewhere where we were focused on a different problem that we were trying to solve, something that I felt fit my skill set better over what I've developed with your coaching and the Get the Meeting and the complex sale. And then through the network that I had built, other coaches that I've reached out to, people that I've met, and bringing all this together, being able to go take a new space and go start to transform the way that companies talk to each other, communicate at C-suite level, and then bring that down into the field and into the marketing. And I just really love where the company is going and what we're doing.
Yeah. And I've kind of seen you evolve as a salesperson. How do you feel about it? Do you feel more confident? Do you feel more like you understand how it gets done?
Yeah, like I said, absolutely. I've evolved a ton over the last 5 years and really since 2017. And I think a big part of that was really letting go of this idea that just the people within your org or your company are the ones that know how to execute or sell.
Yeah.
And so when you put out your classes, that really opened my mind up to how can I start to get better and start to get coached? And I need to be open to being coached, and then take it, make it my own, and come try it, and then come back and say, where else can we improve?
Yeah.
And I've done that with you, and I've done that with a few other coaches that I have in sales. And then just opening up my network to other reps in other industries or other people in other industries to start to learn more. And sometimes I might even lead with some of that, where I'm just trying to learn or understand, not about what their business does or what's going on, from a work perspective necessarily, because you can learn a lot of that by, doing your research, but what's really motivating that person on the other side of the desk that you're trying to talk to? Or
Yeah.
what's going on with them? And I've grown a lot, and I've gotten way more curious than I ever was before. And I think that has been a huge piece of it.
Yeah. Were you not curious before? Because you are very coachable. You ask for help. You're conversational. You don't worry about your ego or being not perfect, right?
Yeah, I checked all that at the door when I knew I needed to make a change, because what I was doing wasn't working the way that I wanted it to work. And there's a lot of stuff behind that from, you get into sales to make money. I think besides being like a professional athlete or a lawyer, a big corporate lawyer or something, sales can run in that same type of arena. If you want to make that type of money, have that type of lifestyle, right? Sometimes I see you posting stuff about an old show that my wife and I love, Suits, with Harvey Specter. I like life up here. And so we want to get up there, right? And this is the career path that we chose to go there. There is no ceilings. I can take it where I want. I can manage it how I want. And I love that. Was I always curious, to go back to your question? I think I thought I was, but I wasn't really, I guess I wasn't curious with a purpose, if that makes sense. Now I'm really curious with a purpose.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's motivating the financial requirement? Is you're single, you go out partying every night, you got a small drug habit that you're overcoming?
No. First of all, we live in Southern California in San Diego, so that's a motivation there. Number two, it's my family, my wife and my two kids, and you think forward on school. College. And my daughter's going to go to kindergarten, and now we got to start paying for that, and we're paying for preschool. And so it's just a lot of little life things that a lot of us all deal with and probably motivate us. But when you really, when I step back and think about it, it's really like, what kind of life do we all want to have? Yeah. And it's about just us as a family, right? We want to go on family vacation and do stuff like that and not have to worry about it. And I want my wife to be able to decide if she wants to stay home or if she wants to work or whatever she wants to do. So we have that flexibility, excuse me, luckily.
Yeah. And I think a lot of salespeople kind of push that aside. And I think we should just be honest about it. I mean, that's why I went into it. If engineering paid the same, I would have stayed. I didn't have a passion for sales. I do now. It evolved.
Yeah.
Once I became good at it and you saw a high correlation between effort and reward, which takes time, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I don't think that I've developed a much deeper passion for it over the past 5 years. And especially over, like we said, the last 3, I've almost become sort of a sales junkie, if you will. I love it. I love talking about it. I love talking to people about it. And I even feel like a lot of sales dips into marketing in a way. So I love talking about customer experience and marketing attribution and how are you actually using these things to be smarter in the way that you're going to market. And how does that affect the C-suite and then as you push down? And so really getting in and learning all of this and being able to surgically understand what companies are doing, what their initiatives are, imperatives. And that's great. You can put all that down on paper in a beautiful little account plan. But if you can't go execute and, like we always talk about, get the meeting, then it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
So, so it's become really like a passion for me, to be honest, and I love it.
And that's kind of, we have that in common because I from the very beginning studied it like I studied a science. Mm-hmm. But then you very quickly, you apply the science, then you find out how much art there is to it, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely a fine line there where they cross over an art and a science.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn that.
You studied supply chain. That's pretty exciting, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it was super exciting. No, but I will tell you, I was thinking about this the other day. I learned a lot in supply chain about process, about how to go from, A to B quickly, like a lot of things. And so I know people sometimes will say, oh, I have a degree and I'm doing nothing with my degree. Now, it depends on what you got a degree in, I suppose, but some of the principles that I learned there, I feel are rooted in how I execute.
Yeah.
because I'm process oriented, I'm strategic. I'm always looking for what path makes the most sense at the time. I'm 3 or 4 or 5 steps ahead, or at least I try to be, right? And some of that was baked into me when I was in college, learning about, the ins and outs of running a supply chain
Right.
at a big company. Mm-hmm.
And that does apply, especially to the complex sale, because most reps are barely thinking about the next step, never mind 2 or 3 steps ahead.
Yeah. And that has been a key thing for me, is to be able to be in a meeting and understand from a really big picture, where are we trying to drive them? What's going to be the transformational experience that they're going to have with us, if you will? And then how do we back that down into smaller micro wins and micro steps along the way, and almost plot out where we need to go? Now, does it go to plan every time? Absolutely not. But at least I know where we're going. So, and I'm going to refer to one of the things that you teach us, the map to money, right? Like, how do we understand where we're going before we even start? So I can envision, if I'm in a meeting with a prospect or a customer, okay, I already know 2 or 3 next meetings we can have, and I'm lining them up in my head as we're talking. Yeah. And they're kind of like shuffling or moving around during the conversation, because I've done a lot of prep, because we spend a lot of time to get a meeting. And then you hear people, did you do a call plan? Did you think about who's going to say what in the meeting? And usually the answer is we did not. Yeah. And I really grabbed a hold of that and said, I will literally almost script the meeting out to the minute on who's talking when, so we keep that direction, momentum, and control. And that has been very powerful.
That's it, because when I started in sales as a kind of a sales engineer, I always assumed we'd leave and they would send the order in the next day. And that didn't happen when I became a rep. Has that happened often?
That's never. I wish. I mean, back in the day, I remember when I first started getting into sales, when I was selling commercial printing way long ago, people's phones would ring. I was like, well, I want to be in that department. So that's kind of how that
answering them is better than calling them, dialing them.
Yeah, and they were all the time, they were just doing this. And, and then the world changed. When I finally moved into that department, the phone wasn't ringing anymore. It was there was nobody calling you. So no, that didn't happen. So we had to get a lot smarter, and it was a journey for me.
Yeah. And, when you were at a company for 5 years, I bet you saw a lot of different types of salespeople. Did you have mentors and anti-mentors there?
I did. I had a few mentors, and I had one mentor in particular that kind of took me under his wing, and he helped me understand how to actually strategize and then execute, but to do that from a way to think really big. Like, do not be afraid to go into a customer with a big number. If you can back it up based on the value that you're driving, or you can have that discussion, right? Because we've guided them into that, and we know what our value is and where we can take their business from a business standpoint. Don't be afraid of that. And that was another mind shift change that I had to have, was going from thinking maybe smaller or transactional to an extent, because it wasn't a transactional sale. But if you're selling, a $2 million renewal, okay, but where's the 10, 15, $25 million that could actually turn into, or 50 million that could turn into? Or is there another business unit that you're doing nothing with that you can go help transform and go in with a big idea? And then that story becomes the story to tell to the rest of the organization. So he really taught me how to think like this, and then how to run a complex sale, like help run the team, or help get into who does what and how. Because usually when you're doing what I'm doing, you have a team with you. Yeah. And that was huge. So couple that, being able to think a lot bigger, and then not just think about it, but how do you actually do it? And then couple that with all the other stuff. That's when I felt like I was really starting to turn here and understand where I can go and my potential.
And where do you see yourself taking your career? What skills do you want to develop? What abilities? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I like being an individual contributor, if that's how you want to classify being an account executive. I don't really have too much of a desire to go into any type of management or anything. It's just not where I really see myself being. But what now long-term vision, if we're going to talk about like big things, I would love to be part or run like, let's call it like an incubation center or like an innovation piece within a sales department that goes out and takes these moonshots,
Yeah.
right? Like, how do we go? Because not everybody can chase a big deal within an organization. You can't. You need those micro wins. You need all of that stuff. And you have to develop a certain type of skill set to believe that you can go out and try and do these bigger deals. And you have to have a roadmap and some of the complex sales stuff that you've put in your courses. I've taken that and I've gone and really studied and learned about mega deals from a few folks, some that have been on your podcast way long ago, connecting with those people, my mentor. So, and I've learned that not everybody can do that. And you've got to be coached. I'm still trying to get better at that, right?
Yeah.
As I do the other stuff as well. So it's kind of in parallel with it until I can get really good at the bigger ones. But I would like to see maybe some kind of within an organization. I think of like a Google, for example. They have incubation centers that are working on different futuristic things. So why not bring that model into a sales org and have a team that's developing that for you? I would love to be part of that. And because a lot of that's too part of my network that I've created, being able to leverage, Brian, can you come in and do a 1-day session with us? And this is where we are. Or somebody else, can you come in and help guide us through some of this? And because people don't reach out like that in my experience.
No, people usually work their network out of need, not out of building, out of giving.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's a need, it comes across as desperate and selfish instead of generous and friendly.
Yeah. And that's a big vision that I have, right? And I've always kind of had it away, but it's something that I can strive for. So it gives me some purpose in the sales in my career. And that's what I feel like it gives me, aside from the family stuff that we talked about. Right. And then every day I'm trying to just get better, right? Like I want to get better at asking the right questions or leading prospects or leading conversations a little bit better. I'm always trying to sharpen my acumen, my business acumen, and tailor it to what problems we solve. And all the time I'm trying to do that.
Yeah, because doing big deals is exciting.
Yeah, well, it's adrenaline rush. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially when they're pure outbound, where there was, you don't have a champion yet, mm-hmm. and you're from cold prospecting to close. It's all you. It's your strategy, your ability, your skills. Does that turn you on?
Yeah, and what I do is I take a lot of what I learn and I'll incubate it for myself and I'll make it my own. And then I'll come back and that's just how I do it. So it's a blend of a few different things. And I really love doing out of the strategy behind all of it. And then actually going out and be able to execute against it and see it start to work, right? When you put a call plan together and you're sitting in there and you're in the room, and I'm not usually the focal point of a meeting, right? Like it's about them. And if I've got somebody in there with me that's much more capable, if you will, to discuss customer experience or marketing attribution or something like that, we've already decided how and what questions we're going to ask and where we're going to drive the conversation. And to see all of that start to play out in front of you, and you're thinking, wow, this is exactly where I can go. And like we said, now I'm over there putting in my mind, I thought these were the next 3 steps. So they just become even bigger than I thought it could be. Or where can we go? So I'm kind of pulling levers sometimes in the background. But to see it coming to life when you've done that prep and that homework and you're utilizing the skill set that you've learned, it is really, really, it's really cool.
Yeah, because that's when sales became fun for me, was when the correlation of effort and reward got aligned. Because too many people, early 20s, first 5 years of sales, working their butts off, effort, some reward. And they're not seeing either the correlation or what they're doing wrong, or not open to what they're doing wrong, or how they could do it better. And that person's just going to stay there. I think what you did really well is you wanted to become better.
Yes. But you just said it goes back to what we talked about earlier. reach out, like go out and find people like yourself. And if it's not you, there's other people out there that are
No,
willing
no,
to
it's just
spend their
me.
time,
Just me.
just you, that are willing to spend their time to give you a little bit of advice. And it
Oh,
doesn't have to be just your sales manager. I mean, I remember conversations with my first sales manager, and it was just kind of like, I'm not really sure what to say. Just go have fun with it. And I'm, my 20s, like, what does that even mean?
mean, right?
I don't even know what that means. Like, I've never sold anything in my life. Like, what? And I could have been in a lot different place had I picked this up sooner. But I've really accelerated, like put my foot on the gas over the past, 4 or 5 years, and that's been huge for me. Is accelerating my growth.
Yeah.
I could read all these books by myself and try and learn all this stuff by myself, but that takes a lot of time.
Well, it's not just knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be open to change. You have to assume you can become better. And a lot of people don't even accept that. They think, it's the situation. It's not me. Well, you have control over you. You don't have control over the situation. So
Yeah,
why not change you?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to start there because that's how you get better. If you look at all sports, they all have coaches. And the coach isn't trying to coach you to hurt your feelings or prove that he's better or she's better. They're trying to help you. And you can either accept it or fight it. But if you fight it, who's getting better? Nobody.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I'm really curious. Speaking of sports and coaches, I mean, Michael Jordan had coaches and trainers, and his new documentary is coming out on Sunday, right, April 19th. And I'm really curious to see some of the behind the scenes on him and how Phil Jackson worked. What was that relationship like, right? And all of them, all of the Tiger Woods, all of the greatest, like you said, athletes have a coach.
Yeah.
And I was such a huge sports fan. I played sports growing up, and I still, I still do, and I still am a huge fan. And so being able to take what you learned in sports and then translate it over to sales, it's kind of a cool parallel when you start to think about the two.
It seems to be pretty consistent with the people I've talked to. They come from some type of thing where feedback, either sports, military, or performing arts. And so
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so they're used to it, as opposed to academics where it's more knowledge based. You pass a test, right? And I think it's if you got to look at sales more like a practice, like law and medicine. You pass the test doesn't mean you can do the surgery, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, don't worry, I've never done this surgery before, but I passed the test.
Could you imagine? No.
Okay. I never tried a murder case, but I got my bar exam, right?
You're spot on. That you just brought something up for me that's also helped me too, get in the right mind frame, is looking at this stuff like a murder mystery, or like you're a detective or something like that, and trying to piece all of that together.
Yeah.
And when you start to think like that, A, it becomes way more fun. And B, you really start to have some dynamic conversations with your customers and your prospects, because you're in a whole other mindset, and you get them into a whole other mindset, which is cool.
I have this discussion with at least one sales manager a day, because they look at it as like all prospects are equal. And it's like, no. How many deals do you need to do, right? Who's most likely to buy? You're a detective. Yeah. Who's most likely to have committed that crime, right? Not everybody in that town, right? Who's closest to it? Who was there? Who had motive? All of these things kind of reverse engineer how to spend your time. That's really all you have as a rep is your time and your skill.
Yeah. And as we go through this pandemic that we're in, right, and we move through this whole thing, a lot of companies are going to change, and a lot of stuff is going to come out on the other side differently. And so you're really going to have to, at least in my opinion, we're going to have to step back for a minute and understand what's going on at that company. Are they shifting their industry for a while? Are they shifting into something because what they were doing before it no longer exists or isn't for a while? Like, So really using some of those, like we're saying, that detective work to understand, okay, what's our story going to shift to?
Right.
Because what stories are we going to go tell? So this is the biggest trigger event that's happened in the century. And we got to start preparing for what it's going to look like, this new world that we're going to walk into. And it might be temporary, and I hope it's temporary, but who knows how long it'll last.
Yeah,
I'm sure we
temporary
won't
is
be
a relative
quarantined
term.
forever. But yeah, I mean, once we're back out, everybody's not just going to come outside and go back to the way
With
that
their
it
wallet.
was.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, with their wallet. Yeah, so how are some of these organizations that were really business to consumer focused and tourism focused and retail focused,
Yeah,
how are
event
their
focused.
customers reacting, event focused, and then how are we going to be able to go help them?
Yeah.
And so everything's going to change, and that's where that detective type of mindset really will come into play, at least in my opinion.
Cool. Hey, and this has been a
Yeah.
fun conversation, Ron. Where can people go to follow you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You can find me on there. It's Ron Massey, Masi, and please connect with me. I just changed over to a new company. I love talking to salespeople, marketing people, and we're doing some pretty cool stuff that can help there. So
Before I did the solely online training and podcasting pretty much full time, I did a lot of on-site traditional sales coaching training type things. And after doing it for about 6 months to a year, I noticed a pattern of how people sat in the room and who asked questions and what they did during the training. And I did this little experiment where after the first half day or the first full day, I go out to dinner with the CEO or the CRO, and I go, don't tell me the ranking. I'm going to tell you the ranking of the people. And I'd have, the top 3, the middle 5, and the rest. And they go, how do you know that? And I go, when you know and see salespeople, how they ask questions, what their focus is on, their interest level, you can pretty much predict how well they'll do with sales. I won't tell you, there's a couple of obvious things. When you see the gray-haired people off to the side who don't really pay attention but work, they know what they're doing. The ones that even embrace it, they're really going to do well. But, if somebody's got 25 years of experience, especially in the same industry, they either figure it out or they move on. Okay, so those people are going to do well. They have their system down. And then there's the younger people who are always asking questions, who engage, who have, I don't know if it's confidence, but they don't have that fear, that concern, where they're freely open about what they're up against, what they typically see, how they face it and how they solve it, and they're open to other alternatives. Those are the ones. If you can hire them. And I think that's what managers say when they want coachability. What they want is an open communication about the situation, what you're doing, what result you're getting, how to improve, instead of, oh, you're doing it wrong, do this. I don't think they want that. Some want just do what I tell you and do what worked for me 10 years ago. There's too much of that. I think what they should want is that open discussion about the situation, really what office hours is now turned into. So if you're in the course, make sure you're getting up to date on the office hours. Second to the last chapter, they're oldest to newest, so go to the very bottom, right before the one-on-ones, and make sure you're checking them out as well. Because it's at these moments where people's minds open up. Because when you do a lecture, when you're giving a lesson, an example, a case study, and it's kind of a monologue, it really doesn't transfer. People will see what they want to see. It becomes a Rorschach. That little picture, you see 2 goats kissing, or you see something else. Who knows what you see? The whole point is, you see what you want to see. When you have the discussion about, okay, this is what I do, and a lot of people get stuck in a rut, and sales can become a rut profession, meaning where they come up with a certain pattern. And if it's a good pattern, a great pattern, it's okay. But if it's not getting you what you want, then it's not okay. And I think the stages that I've seen Ron go through, it was kind of the hard-working, grinding guy, and then he wanted to learn about the complex sale. He wanted to be able to get a conversation started with executives without a pitch because the pitch wasn't working. Nobody joins the course because the pitch is working. If the pitch is working, you don't need the course. You need the course because the pitch no longer works, because everyone's pitching. There's no distinction. You can do a customized pitch or a relevant pitch, and it becomes better, and it might get a little bit more response, 2% instead of 1%, but to connect with another human being requires a talent that no one teaches us. You know, your parents teach you. They taught you how to be polite and answer questions and not piss people off. But did they teach you how to engage with strangers? No, they taught you not to talk to strangers because strangers are bad. But in the business world, everybody we want to talk to is a stranger. To learn that skill requires a lot of experience, a lot of talent, psychology, neuroscience to understand how to do it and why each step works. Then what I worked with Ron is how a big deal works. What are the elements that the people that you will not meet need to see, and how do they need to see it? And to walk through somebody with the biggest deals that they're doing and to be able to guide them through that without the emotion. And this is really the help that you get in closing the complex sale, because it is a complex sale. A lot of people treat it like a simple sale, where at the end it's either a yes or no. Well, no, it's a next step. You're on a journey. You're not going to go from, can I buy you a drink, to let's get married next week. It's a romance. It's a relationship. It's a partnership. And it doesn't always come to a close, but when there's open, honest communication and working together with the whole team and how to prevent it from getting stuck, which is the default. We call it a maybe or no decision. It's just stuck. They have the money. They have the need. They want to do it, but they either don't know how to get it done or it's not urgent enough. How do you control those elements of a deal? You're in the fog of war. If you're the rep, even when I'm the rep, I'm not seeing the things I need to see because I'm blinded by my own self-interest. You need to have a strategy. You need to reflect on where you are and where you want to go. And if you heard what Ron was talking about getting the next meeting, about knowing where the deal is now and where to take it, about what the other people care about, talking about them and their wins, not you and your product. This is an evolution. It's not that you know it or don't know it. It's that you apply it at the right time, and it has to be ingrained in you, which takes time and it takes practice. You know, I use the analogy now a lot of like a lawyer can pass a bar exam, but is he going to be able to get you off on a murder charge? Is he going to be able to work through a trial? No. Because no one taught them. They don't teach you that in law school. They teach you what the rules are. That's all they teach you. Now you have to go out and practice it. Sales is a lot like that, where you learn all these elements. And the number one question I always get online, people who are either not listening to the podcast or don't pay attention, is, can you recommend any great sales books? Yeah, there's 100 out there. But you're not going to learn how to swim by reading a book. You're going to learn the elements, the movements, the dynamics of it, the physics of it, but until you get in and you start moving around. And why does an athlete have a coach on running? I know people who are running coaches. I know people who are, chess coaches. I have a chess coach. I've been playing the game since I was a little kid. I know how to play the game. I want to become better. I want someone to challenge me, to push back on me, to make me think differently, because I want to become better. And it's just a hobby. I've never made a penny playing it, but it gets me thinking in a different way that's helpful. Now, can you apply this to you and your profession and how and why you want to become better? Ron did have a big why, and when I see that, it's always a good sign because it's a long term. It's not about just him. It's about his family, his kids, and the life that he wants to provide for them. That's a big why. That gets you up in the morning. That keeps you moving through the hard times and the resistance that you face. And if you have, I think, the attitude of learning, of practicing, not knowing or not knowing, but practicing and becoming better, and that desire for bigger deals that are more fun, that are more focused. And it was classic what we went through as territory. We do a territory plan. And we're like, okay, let's get hyper-focused because these are big deals. They take a lot of time. Let's focus on the ones I call the precious few instead of the 50 that you might get meetings for, but you're just building pipeline for the person who comes in later, 5 years from now, and has your territory. Sales is all about judgment and prioritization. It's not just activity. Activity is just one element. But if we're all going to work every day, we got the activity down. That's the easy part. It's like what to work on and what order. Am I ranting too much? I'm just passionate when am able to see a sales rep progress. Too many of us, we get stuck in the comfort zone, we in the justification and the blame game. It's something outside of us. Well, we only have control over us. So take all the action and work on us. Go to b2brevenue.com, schedule a time. Let's talk through. I'm holding the prices till the end of April. There's 2 major courses. If you're having a hard time getting conversations started and getting meetings, that's the course for you. Super fast, easy, systematic way. And you're not alone. Okay, you got the content, the lessons, the application, but you get office hours on both courses. 1 hour every other Friday on Zoom, case study based, Q&A, student driven discussion. And when you leave from that, you're like, okay, I understand it. And there's been some major breakthroughs. And the crazy thing is there's non-salespeople in these courses. People who've never picked up the phone, sent a sales email, and they're having insane success. And you get to see the exact examples, the one-on-ones with them, where we go through it step by step by step, and you hear the excitement of when they get in and have a conversation started with a stranger. The other course is closing the complex sale. How do you take it from that first meeting, whether it's qualified, there's some curiosity and interest, all the way through to closure? Understand the steps. It's not just one call where you send a proposal and you pray. You understand how companies buy and how to add urgency, direction, momentum, and control to your deals. And guess what? You don't have to pay all at once. You can just pay monthly. It's not a membership, though. So it's a 12-monthly payment plan. It's a big distinction there. And the idea is at the end of that year that you'll become super good. Now, Ron's renewed, and he's that excitement in that progress. Nobody renews if they're not going to get tremendous progress. So go to b2brevenue.com. There's also a sample email in the show notes if you want to see if you can get your manager to pay for it. But don't let that get in your way. Time waits for nobody. This foolishness I hear of, let's wait till this is all over to see what happens. Well, it's going to be all over, in whatever time frame you think. Are you going to be ready? Is your network going to be built? Is your pipeline going to be built? Start the conversation, get the meeting is also the perfect course to get a job. If you want to learn how to get a conversation started with a hiring manager, do not be submitting anything over a web page. It goes nowhere. I've been a hiring manager. I'd get 50 of them a day. I never looked at any of them because if they're not smart enough to contact me directly, they're probably not going to be very smart selling. Go through the side door, not the front door. That's it. Enough of this. Let's get back to work. Make sure you're checking out the other podcasts, Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers, the B2B Revenue Show. Also, YouTube, check it out there as well. Follow me on LinkedIn. I'm running out of connections. Make sure you follow the company page as well. We'll see you next time.